For decades, whispers about a film so disastrous, so ill-conceived, and so mythologized in Hollywood circles floated through back rooms, late-night comedy sets, and academic symposiums alike. That film was Jerry Lewis's The Day the Clown Cried, an unfinished Holocaust drama shot in the early 1970s that never saw the light of day. The project, which Lewis himself directed, co-wrote, and starred in, became an object of ridicule, fascination, and even awe, largely because no one outside a handful of insiders had actually seen it. For years, scraps of rumor served as the only proof it even existed. A few grainy Polaroids auctioned off after Lewis's death, anecdotes from biographers who dared to mention it in his presence, and the biting commentary of comedians like Harry Shearer, who once said watching it was like seeing a velvet painting of Auschwitz. The movie lived as a ghost, one of those cinematic legends that seemed doomed to remain forever buried, and then, suddenly, in 2024, a crack in the vault appeared. At the Library of Congress, archivists quietly began unlocking parts of Jerry Lewis's personal collection. The materials had been sealed since 2014 under an agreement that they not be viewed for a decade. That agreement expired in August 2024, and almost immediately researchers discovered that what was once thought lost forever, reels of film dailies, hours of behind-the-scenes footage, and long stretches of audio, were now accessible to anyone willing to book an appointment and make the pilgrimage to Washington, D.C. For the first time, The Day the Clown Cried could be studied, dissected, and maybe even understood. Of course, the library's announcement came with a caveat. This wasn't a completed film, the kind you could pop into a projector for a clean 2-hour showing. What archivists found were fragments. 13 silent reels of color negatives, 6 reels of behind-the-scenes footage, 9 audio tapes totaling over 100 minutes of sound, and even stray notes and music on cassettes. The sound didn't line up with the film, meaning anyone hoping for a straight narrative would be disappointed. But the mere existence of these materials was a revelation. 90 minutes of uncut footage from inside Lewis's Auschwitz set, circus makeup, barbed wire, and the grim spectacle of a clown leading children to the gas chambers was now available to scholars, historians, and curious cinephiles. The mythology surrounding the film had been fed for decades by Jerry Lewis's own refusal to acknowledge it with grace. He hated talking about it, bristled when asked, and often turned cruel when pressed. In 1993, when biographer Sean Levy asked him about it during an interview on Lewis's yacht, the comedian erupted. Levy would later recall that Lewis unleashed a barrage of insults, accusing him of lacking personality, demanding his tape recorder, and erasing the discussion. Then he threw the biographer off the boat. That moment became legend, reenacted by Martin Short at dinner parties and whispered about by journalists who knew the taboo. The more Lewis tried to bury the film, the more it became irresistible. The story of The Day the Clown Cried was bizarre from the start. In the early 1970s, Lewis was a fading star, addicted to painkillers and in need of a comeback. He'd just made Which Way to the Front, a World War II comedy about Jewish soldiers plotting to assassinate Hitler, and it bombed critically. Then came the chance to direct a script by Joan O'Brien and Charles Denton about a washed-up German clown named Helmut Dork. The premise was horrifying in its audacity. Dork is arrested for mocking Hitler, thrown into a concentration camp, and ordered to entertain Jewish children. Eventually, he leads them, in full clown costume, into the gas chambers. Lewis decided not only to direct the movie, but to star in it, rewriting the script to suit his own vision. His version, however, turned a bleak meditation on horror and self-sacrifice into a sentimental Chaplin-esque melodrama, complete with pratfalls and tearful monologues. O'Brien and Denton, appalled by what they saw, revoked the rights to release it. Production itself was a mess. Filming took place in Sweden, where reports suggested Lewis struggled to balance his usual slapstick instincts with the gravitas of genocide. Crew members whispered that he broke down in tears on set, overwhelmed by the subject matter. But when he showed early footage to the screenwriters, they were horrified. It was a disaster, O'Brien later said. Denton went further, accusing Lewis of turning a serious story into a projection of his own vanity. Whatever the truth, the rights holders refused to ever allow his version to see release. The reels ended up scattered, some rumored to be left behind in Sweden, others packed into Lewis's private archive, where they gathered dust until his death in 2017. The aura of mystery only grew. In the 1990s, Patton Oswalt and other comedians staged live readings of the original script until they were hit with cease and desist letters. Harry Shearer, who claims to have watched an early cut, mocked it as laughably tasteless. Yet other critics like Jean-Michel Frodon defended Lewis's intentions, arguing that the film was a raw and daring exploration of what it means to laugh in the face of horror. To some, it was offensive trash. To others, it was a misunderstood piece of art. And to many, it was simply a cinematic holy grail, the ultimate lost film. That's why the Library of Congress news hit with such force. After 50 years of rumors, pieces of The Day the Clown Cried were finally tangible. Researchers now had 90 minutes of camp scenes, 3 hours of behind-the-scenes reels, and more than an hour and a half of audio to sift through. The footage wasn't streaming online, and it wasn't being screened in public. You had to make an appointment, travel to DC, and sit in the quiet confines of the library's Moving Image Research Center to watch. But for scholars and fanatics alike, the opportunity was irresistible. The clown was back, if only in pieces. The timing added another twist. Just as the footage became available, a German documentary premiered at the Venice Film Festival, revisiting the story of Lewis's lost film. Around the same time, Hollywood producer Kia Jam announced plans to mount a new version of the movie based on the original O'Brien and Denton script without any of Lewis's revisions. Jam said the script floored him and that he intended to bring it to life in a way that would finally honor its intent. For decades, other producers had tried and failed, from Dodi Fayed, who died in the same car crash as Princess Diana, to Jack Abramoff, the disgraced lobbyist who once pursued it as a German-Israeli co-production. Even Anthony Hopkins and Robin Williams had been floated as potential stars in remakes that never materialized. Now Jam promised the clown story would finally be told properly. But Lewis's version remains the most tantalizing. For him, it was personal. Growing up in New Jersey in the 1930s, Lewis lived in a town where pro-Nazi marches sometimes paraded through the streets. The German-American Bund was a real presence, and for a Jewish kid, the sense of danger was palpable. In later years, he said he was drawn to the Holocaust story because of the children, whose innocence was crushed in camps like Auschwitz. The clown leading children to their deaths was meant to embody his deep, if confused, sorrow. And yet, for critics, the image was simply too grotesque, too mismatched, too self-indulgent to work. Lewis himself never stopped agonizing over the film. In 2015, when he visited the Library of Congress campus in Virginia, he confessed his deep regret. He spoke of the emotional toll, the pain it caused him, and his decision that no one should ever see it.
Are we going to get to see The Day the Clown Cried?
No. No. You want to know why? Simply because it's very easy to sit in front of an audience and expound on your feelings. It's another thing to have to deal with those feelings. And in terms of that film, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed of the work. And I was grateful that I had the power to contain it all and never let anybody see it.
He swore repeatedly in interviews that it would remain locked away forever. That vow held true until the 10-year restriction he personally signed in 2014 expired. Now, despite his wishes, the clown has been unsealed. Still, the footage is incomplete. The sound doesn't match, and the rights remain tangled. There will never be a finished Jerry Lewis cut of The Day the Clown Cried. What exists is a cinematic skeleton, bones of an infamous project that remains as polarizing today as it was half a century ago. Some researchers have emerged saying the reels confirm its tasteless reputation. Others insist it deserves reevaluation, that perhaps Lewis was onto something raw and uncomfortable. What's certain is that the film, even in its broken state, continues to haunt the edges of cinema history. Perhaps that is the greatest twist of all. Jerry Lewis wanted his clown buried. Instead, the clown has become immortal. Film students, comedians, Holocaust historians, and internet sleuths all continue to debate what it means, what it says, and whether it should ever have been attempted. It lives in fragments, locked in a government building, but its myth is more alive than ever. And in the end, maybe that's the only way The Day the Clown Cried could exist. Not as a complete movie, but as a cautionary tale, a dare, and a ghost story for Hollywood itself.